Let me ask you something. Have you ever had 20 grown adults dressed in matching polo shirts threaten to paint your house at 6 in the morning if you don't comply with their community standards? And when you refuse, the next thing you know, police cars show up at your cabin because someone called in an armed threat? Yeah, that happened to me. All over a lakeside cabin that had been my safe haven for years, ever since I inherited it from my granddad and poured my weekends into restoring every hand-hewn log. I'd worked in land records for 15 years. I thought I'd seen it all until the morning the HOA president and her beige army declared war on my front porch, wielding color swatches like weapons and yelling that my non-compliant would finish with single-handedly destroying property values. You know what I mean? That's the kind of morning you only need to live through once. Carolyn Preston, the self-anointed queen of Serenity Lake, hit my property like a one-woman hurricane, megaphone in hand, designer knockoff purse under her arm, and a hot pink blazer, so bright you could see it from space. Her entourage spilled out of their sticker-covered minivans with synchronized precision, each board member clutching clipboards and wearing expressions like this was D-Day. The biggest of the bunch, Chad, bless his heart, struggled to haul out a massive display of what had to be 50 nearly identical beige paint chips. Carolyn started her show, laser pointer out, calling my cabin's natural wood saddle brown, which was, according to her, a direct attack on their dessert beige utopia. I tried to explain, real calm, that it wasn't even painted, just stained to protect the logs, but you'd have thought I'd confessed to arson the way her face twisted up. Not painted? That's even worse, she gasped, claiming my cabin was traumatizing her emotional support peacock and demanding Chad measure the sound trauma from my creaking porch. Just as I was considering my life choices, my neighbor Tom biked by in his world's okayest dad shirt and called out, "That's just what being would, ma'am." That didn't go over well. Carolyn immediately added him to her violation list, live streaming the whole circus with a dog filter while she accused me of terrorizing property values. She was so busy performing for the internet, she backed right into a can of paint beige, naturally, and nearly started World War III right there, shrieking about assault by paint. But what really chilled me wasn't her dramatics. It was when she muttered, "Soon this won't matter anyway," before catching herself and pretending she meant I'd eventually comply. From that day, the notices started piling up like junk mail on Black Friday fines for acoustic assault by natural wood, creating attractive nuisances for wildlife. Apparently, the ducks I fed were in violation too, and my favorite, failure to maintain approved aesthetic standards. Every morning, more creative violations appeared under my door. Tom knocked one day, sweaty and angry, and said he'd just been fined $1,000 for his wood siding, and that there'd been a black SUV parked by the boat ramp for days, windows so tinted you couldn't see in. The HOA wasn't just after my cabin. Something bigger was up. A few days later, Carolyn's army returned, this time with her brother-in-law Brad, an independent aquatic territory consultant, who wielded a measuring wheel and a crayon. After several failed attempts at technology, Brad declared my dock extended 2.7 inches into federal waters, scribbling official notes on a napkin, which Chad then stamped with a Hello Kitty, approved by Kitty marker. You can't make this stuff up. Then Carolyn accused me of running an illegal marina because my neighbors used my dock for free, according to her. That was commercial activity. While she was rallying her board for a sit-in protest on my dock, no less, the plank started creaking so ominously that the whole crowd scattered at the first crack, leaving Carolyn standing alone, still filming. That's when the twist hit. As the wind carried away Brad's official napkin, I caught a glimpse of the words Phase 2, complete takeover, property acquisition, and final solution for holdouts. I'd seen enough backroom schemes to know we weren't dealing with just a paint dispute. This was about grabbing the entire lake community. So, at 2 a.m., I was in my basement, elbow deep in boxes of family documents when my doorbell rang. It was Henderson, the 82-year-old real estate attorney from across the lake, holding a battered leather folder like a lifeline. He slid it across my kitchen table and said, "Your grandfather told me, if anyone ever tried to take your land, to bring you these." Inside were century-old deeds, hand-drawn surveys, original charters, the real history of Lake Serenity. And there, in black and white, it hit me like a lightning bolt. Not only did I own the cabin, but my family trust held rights to the entire lake, including the land the HOA was trying to take over. All their boat ramps, community beaches, and common areas sat on property they'd never legally acquired. Henderson explained the old Willow Creek Land Company issued 100-year leases to railroad workers in 1925 leases that would expire this year. The HOA had been collecting fees for years on property that never belonged to them. Suddenly, the whole scheme made sense. But Carolyn wasn't giving up. That night, she called the police, telling them I was threatening her with military-grade weapons. Sirens, spotlights, and a SWAT van rolled up on my porch, only to discover my terrifying weapon was a fishing rod. Even Sheriff Brody, a man so patient he'd put up with HOA complaints for decades, was fed up. As Carolyn continued her live stream, flipping between Instagram filters and wild accusations, I laid out the real documents for the sheriff, proof that my family owned the land and that the HOA was trespassing. The crowd's mood turned fast from angry at me to furious at her, realizing they'd been paying fees for years to someone who never had the right. But she wasn't done. Days later, fake eminent domain notices appeared on every door, threatening county seizure of homes. The font choices alone should have tipped people off Comic Sans and Times New Roman, misspelled eminent domain, and Detroit phone numbers in Oregon. Security cameras caught Chad, vest straining, slapping notices everywhere, muttering about Phase 2 initiated. I uploaded the footage, the neighborhood exploded, and an emergency meeting was called. Carolyn, desperate, tried to rally the crowd, but Tom pointed out the pizza place phone number and the spelling errors, and the spell started to break. The final blow came from Chad himself. Guilty, desperate, and blackmailed over old gambling debts, he secretly recorded Carolyn laying out her whole scheme, panic people into selling, flip the properties to Serenity Shores LLC, and get rich off the misery. The recording leaked, the crowd turned on her, and just as Carolyn tried to spin one last speech, federal agents showed up. Turns out, her real name was Walsh. Her grandmother was in witness protection. The house she'd built her whole empire on was leased, not owned, and now everything was unraveling. In the end, with the documents in hand, I addressed the community. All leases except one hers would be renewed at the original rates. The HOA dissolved, and everyone could paint their homes any color but desert beige. Carolyn? She went out the way she lived, flailing in a puddle of paint, screaming about injustice, and being led away in cuffs. Her reign of beige tyranny finally ended. And you know what? 6 months later, the community's never been stronger. But as I sat on my dock, a new call came in, Mr. Vance, I'm calling about the real Lake Serenity. Your grandfather didn't tell you everything. So, what would you do if you found out your home was at the center of a century-old secret? Drop a comment below what's justice and who really owns a community. The ones who write the rules or the ones who keep its history alive? Let's hear your story.